Hey everyone, I'm TJB Chris. Welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you're here. And tonight we're looking at one of my Color Computer 3s. This is one of three that I've got, and this one comes in and out as I need it. Anyway, we're going to answer an often asked question about this Color Computer 3. In fact, to see this question, we need look no further than the very last issue of the flagship magazine for the Color Computer, The Rainbow, the Color Computer monthly magazine published by Fallsoft. In the May 1993 issue's CoCo Consultations column, a long-running question and answer column with questions answered by Dr. Marty Goodman, we find the following question. Anthony Lee Dawson of St. Petersburg, Florida at the time, writes via the Delphi online service. Can a Tandy CM-11 monitor be used with a Color Computer 3? Marty Goodman writes back, the CM-11 is a relatively high-quality CGA, RGBI, or 4-bit digital RGB monitor. You can make a cable to go between it and the CoCo 3 by wiring like-named pins together. Using this approach, the CM-11 will display text screens and show a total of 6 colors plus black and white, or as we define colors in the now times, 8 colors. He goes on to describe the wiring diagram between the two things, the two connectors, as well as the pinouts, and then goes on to note that the numbering scheme between the connectors is different and therefore you must be careful. It notes that you ignore the intensity line, and this is important and we'll talk about this more a little later. However, the wiring, as I mentioned, is not straight through, and if you want to get true analog RGB out of this monitor, you would have to basically gut the digital circuitry and try and feed directly into the base level signals within the monitor, something that he says should be fairly easy to rip out the CGA conversion circuitry, but this is not the project for your average tinkerer, he finishes. So with this question in mind, let's go over to the Color Computer 3 and we'll take a look at the CM8 and we'll talk a little bit about RGB. With the CM8 more closely in frame, you can see that it very much resembles the CM11. In fact, from the late 80s CM11 that has the black bezel, they look almost identical. There's almost no difference between them besides the raised nameplate and the fact that the wording on the nameplate's a little different and the bezel's black. They look so much alike that it's pretty logical that one would wonder, well gee, if they look the same, they look like they should work with either computer, why can't I just plug the other one in? And actually, the original CM5 also looked very much like this monitor. So they changed that design. The CM5 changed a lot over the years, but that one did definitely look like this one to start. And it's certainly easy to see why people might also want to use this monitor. Also, as a lot of Tandy 1000s came out of service and dedicated CoCo folks were sticking with the CoCo, and you didn't have a monitor, CM8 was no longer available, hell, why not take advantage of the available CM11s? So with that in mind, we're going to take a look at each of the 3 video output options of the Color Computer 3. We're going to look at the RF modulator, we're going to look at the composite output that was built into CoCo 3s, and we're going to use the RGB output to take a look both at this CM8 as well as the CM11 on my other CoCo 3. We're going to compare the colors, what's available, a few different games, and we're going to see how each of the text screens looks so we can get a better idea of what exactly the CM11 looks like. Because frankly, I've never seen it, and I am very curious to see how it compares to this CM8. Let's get over to the other CoCo 3. Alright, to do this comparison, we're going to type in a very simple basic program, and we're going to use that program to just print some text on the text screen, and using a mix of upper and lowercase, which in the 32-column screen by default on the Color Computer 3 will do the same reverse video thing that Color Computers always do. Yes, it's possible to display real lowercase on this text screen, but we're not going to do that because this isn't the typical experience. I am a Color Computer 3. And 20, go to 10. And actually what I want to do is, okay, a little bit closer now. And I'm going to apologize both for the moire pattern here. I tried the best I could to get it out, but shadow masks and all. And I'm also going to apologize for the little bit of scan you're going to see go by. Lock down the camera shutter and sync with the TV as best I could, but I couldn't get this TV and this camera to completely play nice. So this is as good as it gets, folks. Whatever, it'll work for our purposes. Now, we are currently on RF, which I can demonstrate by flipping to another channel and then going back to channel 3. And in fact, you can see when you first tune to channel 3, or maybe the camera picked it up, that the TV's AFT circuitry had to kind of dial in the tuning on the channel. There's a throwback acronym for you kids that had to go through this back in the 80s. AFT, automatic fine tuning, something you don't hear anymore. It was great when TVs had that. You didn't have to turn the dial. Anyway, let's run this. Okay, trippy. And there it is. Hello, I'm your Color Computer 3. Now, to be fair, as RF goes, this is about the best you're going to get out of the RF modulator. This is a RCA cable from a component HD connection. So this is the green cable. So it's shielded and higher quality and has a little thicker wire than does your common RF cables that were used back in the day. So it looks better than I think it ever would, and it's not going through the switch box. I've got one of those F-type to RCA connectors on the back of the antenna jack. So it's not going to look any better than this, let me tell you. Actually, it looks pretty good, all things considered. So this is with 32, the standard 32 column screen on your CoCo. Beautiful, calming, nuclear green. Let's go to width 40. And already you can see overscan. And this is a big problem with TVs in the 40 column mode. And it's why Color File 2 actually used 38 by 24 to bring the screen in so that it would fit within most color televisions. Anyway, we have our program here. Let's give it a run. And I'll hit break. And aside from the overscan, you can see here that the M's are can be barely made out with the 3 different prongs on them, but you can see them. Otherwise, the text is of fairly decent quality, and again, for RF, I'm kind of shocked that it looks this nice. You kind of shouldn't. But either way, it ain't great, and there's a lot of bleed through with the colors and things like that, the text in the neighboring green. And now I know you're yelling at your computers or whatever you're watching me on right now, oh, TW Chris, change the palette so you can get, white on black or something like that. Yeah. This isn't meant to be the optimal test. This is meant to be a real world day-to-day test, right? Right, that's what we do here. All right, width 80. You got to hit the 0. And now you can barely see the edge of the K, and it's very fuzzy. Let's give the program a run. I'm not going to bother listing it. And here we can see that it is almost unreadable. And in fact, the L's they're definitely not sharp at all. You can see a lot of bleed over. The M's are just blobs. That apostrophe actually kind of bleeds down. The 80 column mode on any television sucks. And then again, this is the best you're going to get out of the RF modulator. So now let's flip this thing over to the AV input, and let's go to width 32. Okay, now we're on line input, back to width 32 column screen. I'm going to give our program a run again. And here we can see, of course, same kind of thing. In fact, it looks almost imperceptibly different. And I don't even think, I'll bet you 50, the camera doesn't even pick up the difference. The letters are clearer, but there's not a whole lot of difference. Let's take a look at width 40, shall we? Same deal, we've got some overscan. There's a little more definition to the letters. And if I run this and hit break, you can see that there's not that much more. You still get a fair amount of bleed through. You've got the M's are barely discernible, little prongs on them. And honestly, it's not terrible, but overscan and all things considered, it's not ideal. And if you had a television, you didn't really use the 40 column mode. At least not with that part of the screen, and you did so judiciously. And now over to width 80. Give that a run, you can barely make out the screen. And this is really almost no better than the RF modulator. So this is kind of readable, but again, less bleed through or bleed down with the apostrophe. The M's are again still imperceptibly M-like, and that's pretty much where we are. But how does this compare to the CM-8 on the Color Computer 3? And back at the CoCo 3, with the CM-8 zoomed right in, real nice and close. Again, Moiré pattern, shadow masks, sorry, scanning, yeah, frame rate. Anyway, we've got our program typed in here just like on the other CoCo 3 with the television, and I'm going to give it a run. And already you can see a big difference in the 32 column screen. I mean, look, you got a well-defined border, and this is the CM-8's higher resolution definitely comes through in this, just in its presentation of the 32 column screen. And looking closer at the lettering here, we can clearly see that the monitor is much easier to read. In fact, I'm going to zoom you in just a little bit more. There we go. There we go. So you can get a better look at this text. And again, filming a CRT to prove this out is much more difficult than in person. But take it from me, the guy in the room, that this is much clearer than was the television on either RF or composite modes. So let's go to width 40. And I'm going to give this a run. Already, though, before I do, actually, you can see all of the OK prompt. That's a plus. And in fact, there's a whole border area to the left. And in fact, this entire screen is surrounded by a border. And if you screw with the Color Computer 3's palette, color attributes, you can actually change the border color. And if you do, the outer border can be a different color from the inner text screen. It creates this little box effect. Anyway, let's give this a run. And then taking a look here, now the text is much more defined. You can make out the M's and the individual little prongs there. And the text has fairly decent definition. It's not the most crisp in the world. In fact, the CM8 was regarded as okay enough, but back in the day especially, people would opt for higher quality RGB analog monitors that could be made to work with the Color Computer 3. That said, I'm happy with my CM8 and I kind of like the Tandy experience. So, this is the 40 column screen. Doesn't look half bad. Let's go take a look at the 80 column screen with 80. Alright, already you can see that we have some easily defined OK prompt. The moire pattern and shadow mask might make the camera have a harder time picking it up, but I can easily read OK, and if I give this a run, I can easily read the text, but you start to notice that the M's again are starting to run together, and that the rest of the text is pretty readable, but very close together, the M's really highlight it. There's not a lot of bleed through, but there's some. But overall, this is a more than useful screen, and if you do change the colors around, if you were to say use white on black or otherwise, where you don't have a green background, this actually does become even more usable. Or a common color palette on these, especially Nitrous 980 column screens, is a dark blue with a white foreground, and that's a very nice, easy to read screen. But still, you're going to see some of this with the CM8. Now that we've seen all these, let's throw in the CM-11 on the other Color Computer 3. Back at the Color Computer 3 with the TV on it, you're wondering to yourself, I know, I can hear it, TJB Chris, how is it that you're going to connect that CM-11 monitor to the Color Computer 3? CoCo 3 has this little pin header on its bottom, and the CM-11 has a DE9 connector, referred to in the rainbow and previously often back in the day as a DB9, though it may be incorrect. And here is my answer to that. The answer is this, my friends. This is a DE9 serial breakout. You can probably tell by the great text that's in there, outlining the various serial pins. But when looking at the CM-11 pinouts, I was able to figure out which pins were both grounds, red, green, blue, the intensity line, which we're summarily ignoring, as well as horizontal sync and vertical sync. Looking at the Color Computer 3's documentation right next to it, we can also see the exact same lines, sans the intensity line, which again, we'll be ignoring. Now, as Dr. Marty Goodman pointed out, these pinouts do not align, and in fact, the order of the pins ain't even close. But I have created this adapter so that the pins are correct for the CM-11 side, and all I have to do is now attach them to the correct place on the bottom of the Color Computer 3, connect the CM-11 monitor, and we should be good to go. So let's flip this CoCo 3 over, and we'll take a look at her bottom. And now, getting up close and personal with my Color Computer 3's bottom, you've got the pinout from introducing your Color Computer 3 on the right side of your screen, and 6 is our pin of the day because it is the missing pin in our key connector. And as you can see by the diagram, it has pin 6 on the bottom, but the orientation of the computer is I'm looking at it from the front and not the back, so 6 is here. That means that 1 is here and 10 is up over here. So with that in mind, I'm lucky that my adapter here is numbered in all of its pins, so I know exactly where all the pins go. And now, looking at the connections that I have to make, both monitors' numbered pins 3, 4, and 5 are red, green, and blue, respectively. 6 is intensity on the CM-11 side, which we will be ignoring, which is no connection on the CoCo 3. 7 is not used, and 8 is H-sync, 9 is V-sync. So I have to match the pin numbers, and this adapter makes it easy for me to do that. So I'm going to connect here. We'll just connect the grounds first. So pins 1 and 2, I'm going to connect to pins 1 and 2 on the Color Computer. Here we are all connected. Now, it's hard to see because it's kind of hard to light in there, but I've got the pins connected in order. So 1 and 2, connected 1 and 2 on the CoCo 3. This one looks like it's about to break, but let's hope it holds. And then 3, 4, and 5 to RG and B, 3, 4, and 5 to 3, 4, and 5. And then we've got our H-sync, V-sync. 6, of course, is no connection. And then on this connector, 10 is not used and 7 is not used. So I have 2 unused pins in addition to the key pin. So now I think there's nothing left to do but connect the CM-11 and actually end the suspense and see what the hell this looks like. Of course, to see all this CM-11 glory, we've got to connect it up. And actually, these are both male connectors. So I have this little adapter here. That's what we'll call it. We used to have a better name for it back in the day, but I'll just avoid that. And then we're going to plug this in. Okay. Moment of truth. Did I wire it right? What the hell will this look like? Find out right now. Alright, starting out with a long shot, let's power on the CM-11. And just in case you're not sure, this is in fact the CM-11 and I can prove it. because this here nameplate says Tandy RGB high resolution monitor, color monitor, I'm sorry, CM-11. And you can see the nice raised nameplate here. Ain't no cheating going on. All right, what does this even look like? This is going to be fun. We're doing the long form view just so you can see it here. Whoa, we have a video screen. All right, let's zoom right in and take a closer look. But look at this. Oh my God, it's sharp. And zoomed in much closer. Now you should really be able to see the splendor of this thing. It is super sharp, especially compared even to the CM8. And as Marty Goodman said, this is a relatively high quality CGA monitor. Sure, there were better, but this is the best CGA monitor that I can remember Tandy offering at any point. And looking at it on the Color Computer 3, damn, this thing's sharp. Now, what it makes up for in the damn sharpness factor so far, and we've only just begun, not singing that, copyright strikes, I hate that song, but it'll lose in the color factor. We'll get to that. Anyway, let's type in our little program here, and I figured you wouldn't mind watching me type it because it looks just so awesome. Oop. And there we are. We have our program ready to go. Let's give it a run and see how it looks. And still trippy. And of course, aside from the border, which of course we got CM8 style, although I feel like we get kind of even more, everything is very well defined in the 32 column screen. I mean, the zero, the slash through the zero, all of this is, compared to the CM8, looks fabulous. And because of the color of the screen, the black is black. It's great. Anyway, so that's what it looks like on the 32 column screen. Let's take a look at the 40 column screen, shall we? And now looking on the 40 column screen, and we have a really nice, well-defined OK prompt. The CM8 did a very nice job with the OK prompt. I feel like this is a little even clearer still. And just like the CM8, we get the border around the outside. So round the outside, two Trailer Park Girls. Let's give this a run. And now this, even more than the CM8, the M's really tell the story. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but they are absolutely well-defined. All of this, very easy to read. For a text processing system, if you were using your color computer for text or anything, I'm already going to say hands down, if you're going to use one of the standard text color schemes, this is fabulous, just fabulous. All right, that's with 40. Let's take a look at with 80, shall we? All right, moment of truth. And over here with 80, let's just give this a run and stop that. And already I can see this is much clearer. This is the easiest on the eyes 80 column screen that there is. The M's are obviously still close together, and that might just be an artifact of the Color Computer 3's video circuitry as it stands. But the M's are the prongs. I know that's probably not the right word, but I am not a linguist, and Weird Al can finish the other part of the linguist that I'm not there for you, but I'm not gonna, because it's a word crime. But it's still well defined, more so than the CM8, and I don't know that the camera is going to pick that up, but it is certainly a much clearer picture. But you see, this is where the give and take is, my friends, because as Dr. Marty Goodman mentioned, we're going to lose some on the colors. The CM8 can display all 64 of the colors in the Color Computer 3's palette and then some. Looking back at this, let's actually just go through the CLS colors. So for the with benefit of seeing this nicely, let's go to width 40. And so the CLS, actually CLS 0, won't do this, so I can go to width 32 for that. Hello. You gotta learn how to type, man. So CLS 0, you can see just nice black screen. Black is black, it's gonna display on this thing. All right, back to width 40. All right, CLS 1, that's green. And this is the same, or close to the same familiar nuclear green that we have, the calming green that we have on color computers. Now, to my eye, and this is sitting in person, the camera probably does this no justice, it's not quite as warm as the others, but hey, what are you going to do? Let's go to CLS 2. And this is coming up as a red screen. This is clearly blue. Let's actually do something. I'm going to modify this screen a little bit and give it a white text. And that, give me this a run, just because now I'm curious. This is one of my favorite screen color combinations on the Color Computer 3. And actually, this really shows the M's. And this is what I was saying about if you had a black background and white text, this would really shine. The green background does kind of introduce some bleeding and noise, but the blue does better. Okay. And that's a black one. And actually, let's do this. Can I fix this? Hold, please. Okay, back to CLS4. I got it. I just had to palette RGB and flip around the colors. I forgot the adder commands to get back to where I was, and that's my common fault. I never remember how to get back because I never remember the palette slots is by default. Anyway, now this is CLS4. Ooh, well, not CL4, CLS4, you dummy. Okay, CLS5, buff. That's what they call white on these things because it was white-ish. 6, and that is that ocean greeny color that we get, and we get a magenta, and the same color as 4 as 2, and this kind of demonstrates the different color differences between the CM-11 and the CM-8. And I didn't run those for you, but you're going to be watching them right now in B-roll as I take a look at CLS2, CLS4, and CLS8, and you're going to see the differences between those. But as far as this goes, this is a limitation of the CM-11 and the digital RGB situation, especially without the use of the intensity line. So with this in mind, what happens if I put in, you know, a color computer game? Now, this is an RGB monitor, so we're going to be using the RGB mode. Let's try Rad Warrior. So here we are. I love this game. I realize most people don't. The controls are a little awkward, but if you think the controls on this one are tough, run the Apple II or the PC version. Okay, RGB. Now already this text should be yellow, so this isn't right. But press the space bar and let's see what we have here. I'm going to use the keyboard, thank you. Okay, now actually it's funny, the forest floor and the trees look about right. This dude should be yellow. He's right. The drop of acid rain is close. This guy's color is correct. I just murdered. This back and forth thing is close. And what I'll do is you'll see a side-by-side of... Oh, don't hit the acid rain. Ah, you dummy. Not that I'm going to need those rejuvenations, but, you know. As you can see, we've got... And what I really want to do is just get to the point where I can get to the suit, energize it. Okay, perfect. And then we'll energize this, and I want to show you kind of what it looks like, okay? And he jumps up, goes into the suit, it lights up. The green, the bluish ocean is correct. These bars have different levels of health, which you're probably seeing right now because I have a similar playthrough on the CoCo 3 going. So, or on the CM-8, I guess I should say. But either way, it's passable, but the colors are definitely wrong. And let's take a look at another game and see how that one looks. We're going to take a look at Thexder. Okay, here we go. And this looks good. The blue, the red, the white, this, and look at the 80 column text, white on black. That is fabulous. Now already I can see as the demo started to run an issue. And let's go here. Okay, this looks pretty close. There's no yellow here in the shield graph, the display, or the energy graph. There's a yellow between red and green. But hey, otherwise, I mean, this game was heavy on the reds and the blues. The acid pits lack definition. But I mean, overall, I mean, it's super clear. This game actually renders a little better. This game isn't very bold in the palettes, so I'm not going to play all the way through to level 2 to see what some of the other enemies look like. But overall, I think this really does. And compared to the CM-8 rendition of this, you can tell that it's different. No doubt, but honestly, it's not too bad. So now, let's wrap this up. So there you have it. The CM-11 monitor can be made to work with the Tandy Color Computer 3, and the result, if I may say so myself, is just dandy. Of course, that really plays if you have word processing application, monochrome graphics applications, or something that's really fitting for a limited color availability. But otherwise, if you're really going for the true CoCo 3 experience and you want all the colors, because we all need all the colors, then this is not the monitor for you. Stick with the CM8, the Magnavox 8 CM575, or the Commodore alternatives, and of course the modern alternatives. We've got VGA and HDMI and all sorts of great ways to connect your color computer to a modern display and enjoy it in all of its colorful glory. So I think that's really going to about do it. I always wondered what this looked like ever since I read it back in 1993 when I got that issue of the Rainbow and was both sad about the demise of the Rainbow but also really curious. I never wired it up then, not too long after I had a CM-11, but never thought to do it. I was too enamored with Tandy 1000 SX, I guess. But either way, now I've finally done it, and honestly, this was a worthy experiment, and I hope you enjoyed it too. It was kind of fun to see, and I've never actually seen it. So there we are, that's it. CM-11, Color Computer 3, just like classic whiskey and classic computers, they're a winning combination. And with that, I'm TJB Chris. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you next time.